I'm back. Well, what have we got today? Is it a baby Kemper? Kemper, what's that? Well, a Kemper amplifier. We'll call it that. It's really a preamplifier for the most part, unless you've got a lot of money, then it's an amplifier. But it's like a simulated tube amp, or thousands of tube amps, and it can go and snatch a tone from a real tube amp. Think of it snatching the tone and putting it inside the Kemper amp, and then the Kemper plays just like the one you just did. I've got a review or two on my YouTube channel and at www.mckenzie.com, so go and find out about that. But this is made by Kemper for the Kemper amp. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. So let's talk a few minutes about the Kemper amp and why they made this. Well, when you take a Kemper amp and you want to sample the sounds of a real tube amp and put them into the Kemper, that's the simplest way of thinking about it. Well, you take a microphone and you stuff it in front of your speakers and you run the cable into the back of the Kemper and you turn your amp on, and there's a set procedure that you run through where you play and the Kemper listens, and eventually the Kemper will say, this is the tone, this is your amp, and you can save it as a preset. That's all pretty simple, right? Well, think about it. Unfortunately not. It's not simple, because you didn't capture the amp. What you captured was an amplifier and its speakers. And when the Kemper came around a few years ago, I had one pretty much within a month or two of it coming out. And that was the case. You sample it, you got the amp, you got the speakers, you got the whole damn thing into the Kemper, and now I sound like the amp. Well, no you don't. You sound like the amp with the speaker. Now guys will know, many guys will know, that if you change a speaker cab on an amp, it can sound very different. In fact, it can sound incredibly different. If you go, for example, go and take a Marshall amp and use a Marshall speaker cab, and then go and put a Mesa Boogie, one of them big deep cabs on instead, and you have a different sound, completely different sound. So the speakers have a massive effect. There is no doubt about that. And Kemper knows that. They always did. But I guess as the Kempers moved on, they've introduced more versions of firmware and updated the Kemper amp, until now you can have, it can even separate, they claim, the speaker cab from the amp. So what Kemper did, pretty much like a lot of other people, they made a DI box. Well, what's that about? Well, what it's about is this. This comes from your amplifier into here, and this output here goes to your cab, right? Okay, so far. So it's just like an in and an out that sits there on your amp and speaker. Simple enough. But magically, it's got this tube profiler input mode. Now you could use other products. Whether you get the same result, I don't know, because I guess Kemper likes to make this do a good job with its Kemper amp. That's why they want to sell you one, isn't it? And they're not cheap. These are like £89 or euros. It's something very expensive for what it is. I mean, it feels good, but does it do the job? That's the question. So this comes out and goes to your profiler, and what you now have is purely the profile of an amplifier, as opposed to purely the profile of the amplifier and the cab stuck together. It's a very subtle difference, but it makes a lot of difference. So what I want to do is whip the lid off and have a look inside. I don't really think they sell thousands of these, but that doesn't matter. That's why it's in a review. So I'm going to whiz that lid off, like I said. Let's have a look inside, and then I'll whip it up outside, and we'll do a bit of jiggery pokery on the Kemper with this and see how it all works. See if it's really worth buying. Sounds like a plan. Let's go get the lid off. Now, just before we continue, to get the lid off isn't so easy. They've got them little star screws on that they put on there to look fancy, but everybody can open them. I don't know why they do that. It's just pointless. I bear that in mind, Kemper. Totally pointless. Just use ordinary screws, dude. Indeed, it's so pointless, I can open it with an Allen key. Well, the lid's off. Let's get up close and personal. Well, here we are inside the Kemper DI Box, that is. This is not inside a Kemper amp. That could be funny. Okay, well, take a look at it inside. It's all pretty straightforward. It's all flow soldered by the look of it to me. So it's been made on a machine. This one says something like, what does it say? Week 2015, about right. Bought it towards the end of the year, or the early part of 2016. And there's not much in it. You've got a couple of these things, whatever they may be. I'm not even going to bother check, but they are what they are. A few resistors, 2 of these, very fancy case. That's about it. Is it worth the money? Well, looking inside, probably not. But you're paying for the case, I can assure you. The case is a bit more quality than what you'd see in most, I guess. But a resistor's a resistor. And a capacitor's a capacitor. Well, I didn't even see any of that. Who knows? That's enough of inside. Very little to show you, but I did want to show you the quality. So there it is. I'll screw it back together and we'll carry on from there. I'm back. On the front we've got, as I said, from amplifier, 2 cabinet and 2 profiler. I'm not going to zoom in. It's not even worth doing that. Not even to see the Kemper logo on the name. But it would have been nice to zoom in to have a quick look at the CE approvals, but there aren't any. Fancy that. No Roche compliance, no CE approval, which isn't the case on Kemper. It's the case on this. Maybe, I suppose, Roche compliance doesn't matter in Europe, especially if you're German. One reason the English left. You go figure. Well, as is the case in a lot of this type of equipment, it's well made. There's certainly not a lot in this one. It's really quite chunky and heavy. I think you paid a lot of money to have a profile like a Kemper amp, and I wish Kemper hadn't done that. It's a big cost problem, and I think the little screws on the side are actually just a joke. Yeah, they weren't serious. They can keep you out of that, were they? No, of course not. So I think that Kemper should reconsider making this for the £35 it's worth, without the shape, and wake up. Then you may well sell a few more. I don't know. I'm going to review it connected anyway, so you're going to hear it in use. But the Kemper's very impressive anyway, whether you've got this or whether you haven't got this. This just allows you to have just the amp, so we can change a few of the cabs over, like I said. So it's got its plus points, of course. I'm sure there's other stuff that will DI in a similar manner, but maybe the Mesa Boogie will. It's very similar. Mesa Boogie cab coin, very similar. I think you can turn the cab bit off. I think you can. I've been asleep since I did that. So what would I rate this out of 10? Well, I have tried it before. I have to own up. I did buy it with my own money, and Kemper didn't pay me anything to do the review, because they never do. So what? Who cares? I'm just an ordinary user like you. Would I pay £90 or £80 for it? Whatever it was, again, it wasn't cheap for what it is. No. Would I wish that it had just a little square box that was just any old thing, and you put the things in there and it just did what it does now? Yeah, I would wish that. Would I wish it was £35? Yeah, I'd wish it was £35 or 40 odd euros. Yeah, that's about it. How would I rate it out of 10? Well, because of its cost price, and because of going through all this trouble to make it just look like a DI box that looks different, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. It probably works okay, don't get me wrong, but I'm paying a lot of money for just aesthetics that, to be honest, neither I or most users would give a damn about. Kemper clearly does, but I don't. I'm the user. Kemper ain't going to use it, is he? Just think how many you'd sell, Mr. Kemper, if you actually made them cheaper. Yeah, to be worthwhile. Mind you, I suppose this is worthwhile. You only have to have 10 and you'd be a millionaire, wouldn't you? Anyway, enough of my frivolousness. The Kemper bit's coming up that way anytime presently. You'll see a thing in the corner up there that says visit www.tonymckenzie.com, which is my website. I've got loads of reviews on there. And this video is in my YouTube channel, which is well over 180 independent reviews that you can trust. Like this one. I'm not biased towards Kemper, I own them. I've got one. I bought this one too, but I wouldn't buy another, so don't think I'm biased in any way. No, I'm just telling you the way that I think that this thing is. So it's coming up now. It should be interesting. Kemper's always interesting when you look at Kemper amps, and if you've never seen one, be prepared. It'll change the way you think about them. By the way, this is 4.06 12337 revision. Well, what are we doing? We got the Kemper. We've got the DI box that's been wired into that Bogner Brixton at the top up there, which I've yet to turn on and do its thing. Yeah, what we're going to do is profile the Bogner Brixton without a speaker cab and get it into this, which makes a change really compared to some of the things we've done before. Now, whether this is any good is another story. Whether it sounds better or worse is another story. So what we are going to do is we're going to capture it with and without a speaker. Yeah, if you get the idea. And then we'll go from there and have a listen and things like that. So I'm just going to get on with it, do a bit of profiling, capture this through this, and let's see what happens. It should be interesting. Now, as the Bogner's usually pretty revolutionary in its tones, so yeah, you'll know it when you hear it. So let's get on with it. Now I can guess that you can hear the eggs frying in the background. Well, that's the Bogner Brixton, which can give a fair bit of output. So it's now been wired in, as described in the manual, by the way. And yeah, let's profile. So after all the mess of the noise and the jangling around, now got a profile stored, a Bogner profile with no cabinet, which is all exciting, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. So the thing is, what we're really going to do now is play it back as is, straight out into a amp, see what it sounds like, and then put a cabinet on it, see what it sounds like direct to the PA even. Yeah, it should be interesting. Hold on. Now then, thing about this is there's no cabinet. I've rewired it into the desk, so there's definitely no cabinet. You can tell. If you listen to the sounds of it, it's sort of like the Brixton, but it sounds really nasally and scratchy because there's no speaker. But of course, we could now, if we're going through the PA, add a speaker. Let's do that. Now here's the exact same Wagner capture with a speaker. Now the thing about that is that the speaker that I'm using is actually the 1960 lead speaker down there, which I would have normally profiled, by the way, but in this case, you know, we wanted not to profile it with the DI, and that's exactly what we got. We got an amplifier with no speaker tone whatsoever, and you could tell. But I think the thing is, what we need to do is to take the output of this now and put it through a clean amp into a speaker and turn the speaker off. Okay, well, I have it wired up now so that it's basically going off through the return of the Mesa Boogie Royal Atlantic, which is a bit weird really. But there it is, no speaker turned on. It's going through the amp into the speaker, the very speaker that I would have used anyway, which is a bit weird. So it should sound pretty much like the original did. Maybe down to that, I guess, and down to this, I guess, but it sounds pretty good to me. So take a listen. Right away, it's brought back all that sparkle that was sort of missing when we went down other routes, shall we say. What you got now is a sound that's sort of very reminiscent. Very reminiscent of the original. And of course we can tweak it down here. There's no cabinet turned in because I've got a cabinet. And that is exactly the reason I bought this thing, which is under review actually. So all a bit weird doing this sort of thing for a review for that, but that's the only way you can really do it. Having said that, there might be something special in here that's pertinent to a Kemper and its profiling, but there might not be. It's worth at least having a try to see what other units work. Maybe even Behringer, as some people say. Who knows? But the Wagner does seem to work, and not much more I can say really. It's all good. Now then, that I've shown you the basic sort of workings of the Kemper and the profiling and the use in particular of this DI box. Like I said, Kemper might well have tuned this in some way to be different than others. I don't know, they don't tell me anything. Do they tell anybody anything? Well, if you go on the forums they'll say yes they do, but the reality is that there is no information on this, and so a look inside what I opened up might actually tell you something. Kemper Amp continues to move forward. It's probably still the best simulator of amplifiers in the world today. But of course things change. You know, you got that other thing in America that's like double the price and half as good. And then you've got some of the other things. You've got the Helix, which I thought for the money, you've got to bear in mind it's overall pretty cheaper than this. And less aggro, by the way, than this, by a long way. So the Helix has its own place in life. Then you've got things like, I've got down here a multi-amp. And the multi-amp keeps moving forward, but that was never in quite the same complexity of a product like this. And I think the biggest shortcoming of the Kemper is its complexity. The operating system continues to evolve, but as it evolves, what actually happens is that you're getting less and less and less simple. Now, a lot of people will argue with me, but I remember these when they first came out. How many people can remember that? Well, I'm sure some on the forum can. But I'm sure there's also a lot of guys that have never seen one of these in its basic version 1 format. And there was nothing wrong with them. It sounded great. But all the complexity keeps adding on and adding on. And I guess that's how they keep the people that use them every day happy. And I guess it adds a value to the product. But they're not cheap anymore. So coming back to the Kemper, the DI, like I said, personally I felt was overpriced. At I think it was €90, something like that. It's about 70 something odd pounds these days. So that's it for me. I haven't gone into you plug this wire in here and that sort of thing, because to be honest, unless you own one, there's no point. And if you do own one, well, guess what? You probably already know how to do it. Who are you? So until next time, yeah, it should be good. Oh, and just before I do go, there is one thing I can talk about, and that's the new album I've just released, actually, with Alan Bruce. And that album should have taken a couple of years to develop, and it didn't. It took 4 years overall, because health problems I had, which was prostate cancer. So if you're 40 or older, go and get checked, guys, because you won't be there if you don't. It's as simple as that. I'm still here, so unfortunately for you, or fortunately, depending how you look at it. But you know, the album is going to be out there at the end of August. It's got loads and loads of different styles on, and I do actually have the Kemper on at least one of those tracks. But what I'd like to know is which track. You can go and have a listen at the album. You can listen to your little bits on iTunes and all that if you don't actually want to buy it, because there's no other way you're going to get it. But the Kemper Amp's out in there, and indeed in the album cover there is a Kemper Amp. Believe it or not. All you got to do is buy the album and you'll be able to find it. But it isn't on the outside. I still have this loyalty to Kemper. They don't always like having any loyalty to me, because they don't always like what I say. You know, often I'll say things like overpriced or something like that. Well, that's life. That's the way it is. That's what I think, and I'm entitled to that opinion. So, don't like it, Kemper? That's tough, isn't it? I'll see you at the next show. So, look out for the album, and if you buy it, great. And if you don't, great. Who cares? I couldn't care less whether you buy it or not. But there'll be plenty of people that do. And some of them tracks on there, man, are awesome. I've got Alan Bruce in there with all the vocals and all the rest. And anyway, that's enough of my push of the album. Just watch out for it. And until next time, yeah, I'll be back. See you again.